ripped apart on the subject of race, and big demonstrations in Britain as well. Senator Rick Scott's been a staunch supporter and defender of President Donald Trump, and before entering the Senate, he was governor of Florida. When I spoke to him on Friday, I began by asking him if he thought that President Trump's response had been appropriate.
First of all, I tell you, it's a hard time to be the president. I think he did the right thing by reaching out to George Floyd's family, and I think he did the right thing by requiring a federal investigation. It's really a tough time because, in America we have the right to protest, but you have to do it peacefully. And I know he's working hard to try to make sure everybody's safe. Now, most of that actually is done by governors and mayors with their local police. But I know the president's focused on it, so it's a tough time.
Traditionally, the job of the president is to calm things down in these kind of situations. And yet President Trump told state governors, if you don't dominate, you're wasting your time. You'll look like a bunch of jerks. And then that famous tweet, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. His language has inflamed tensions, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's a tough time. Most of it, things like this, the governors and the mayors are responsible. You want people to feel comfortable that they can peacefully protest, but boy, you sure don't want these poor business owners get hurt and people get hurt. And now we've lost, as you know, we've had law enforcement have lost their life in this country as a result of the people that are protesting not peacefully. So it's a tough time to be president.
But Jim Mattis, the former defense secretary, who used to be very loyal, he said, Donald Trump is the first president in my lifetime who does not try to unite the American people. Instead, he tries to divide us.
Well, I think, General Mattis has got a great reputation. He was a wonderful member of the military, wonderful member of Trump's administration. Everybody has the right to their opinion. And so I'm glad in this country you can do that. I know he wants this country to be safe, but it's hard to do. But I'm glad Mattis feels comfortable putting his opinion out there.
Well, of course, he's not part of the administration any longer, but Mark Esper, the current defense secretary, certainly is, and he is hostile to using the army to disperse protesters. And he says, both as a former soldier and as a former member of the National Guard, the option to use active duty forces in a law enforcement role should only be used as a matter of last resort and only in the most urgent and dire situations. We are not in one of those situations now. I do not support invoking the Insurrection Act. Is he right?
Well, I completely agree with him. I think that it is an absolute last resort that you use active military. And hopefully this will go back to being peaceful protests. I mean, look, your heart goes out to George Floyd's family. You can't imagine losing somebody like this. And what those law enforcement did is absolutely wrong. And everybody I've talked to in law enforcement says it was wrong what they did. But it's also wrong if you protest not peacefully.
British people are turning on their television sets and seeing really disturbing images of American police behaving very aggressively to peaceful protesters. It looks terrible, doesn't it?
Well, I think it's not just, think about it. I talk to law enforcement a lot, especially in Florida, and they're disappointed when you see something like what happened to George Floyd. They know that's wrong. So I can tell you, Americans expect people to be treated with respect. We all want people to be treated with respect. I'm sure it's the exact same way in Britain. I have a friend that his son's a brand new law enforcement officer. You feel sorry for what they're going through right now, where people are being so mean-spirited to them, spitting in their face and calling them names. All of us have to sort of come together and say, we can really be mad that this happened to George Floyd. We can be furious it happened to George Floyd or anybody else. And we've got to say, how do we make change? But you don't make change by being mean to somebody else. You make change by saying, what can we do better? What can we learn from this? What conversations do we have to have that are not having? That's how you solve these problems.
Well, we've seen the treatment of protesters outside the White House facing rubber bullets and tear gas. Was that not a breach of their First Amendment's right to peacefully assemble and protest?
Well, we haven't. I mean, here's what I believe. You have a right to protest here. I mean, we have a right to protest. You have to be peaceful. So I was not there, so I can't say that I know exactly what happened there. I do know
It
that
seemed
that
to be
they were
peaceful.
worried. I talked to some members around the White House, and they're very worried about them breaching the fence at one time. So people have got to understand you've got to do this peacefully, and then we've got to the other side of it. The law enforcement has to treat people both sides have to treat each people with respect. No one has a right to tear somebody else's property up. No one has a right to tear up government property. Nobody has a right to injure somebody else. So both sides have to do this.
Let's turn to the coronavirus epidemic. The US has now seen well over 100,000 deaths. The federal administration has badly mishandled this crisis, hasn't it?
Well, first off, you'd like to have zero, right? You'd like to have zero deaths. I think that if you would, I mean, it's frustrating what China did to all of us, and they didn't just do it to America; they did it to you guys, Brits also, because they lied about this, and we could have prepared better. If the whole world could have prepared better, and China, communist China, intentionally appeared to do this, and along with the help of the WHO. I think what has gone well in America is that shutting down travel from Europe or from China was right early on. All countries probably should have shut their travel down to where it didn't spread as fast. We needed to get up to speed on the test, the COVID test. We still have work to do on getting the COVID test. I think it looks like we are in pretty good shape on the antibody test. As far as the number of tests out there, the COVID tests, we still need some work to get enough tests out there. The clearly, like in New York, they made a mistake on sending people back to nursing homes. That was a mistake. Right now, the way I look at it is, where are we? We got to get this vaccine done. Unfortunately, we have evidence that Communist China is trying to sabotage us or slow it down. If we do it first, or England does it first, or anybody in Europe, we're all going to share. Communist China won't share, so we got to get that done. We still have a lot of work to do on the COVID testing side to get more tests out there. The businesses are open.
Sorry, can I just pick you up on that? When you say that China is trying to stop the West's development of a vaccine, what evidence do you have for that?
Sure, Andrew. So what we have evidence that what they're trying to do is sabotage or slow down our ability to get this vaccine done. It's really important that we're going to open up our economy, but we're going to really open our economy when everybody says, "Hey, look, I can get a vaccine, and I know there's therapeutics that I'm not going to die." Right? Those are the two things. And China does not want us, England, any Europe, they don't want us to do it first. They've decided to be an adversary to Americans and I think to democracy around the world. And this is just one evidence of that.
But China can't stop us developing a vaccine, can it?
Sure, it came through our intelligence community. So I'm on armed services, so clearly there's things that I can't discuss that I get provide information. But there's evidence that they've been trying to either sabotage or slow it down. I mean, this vaccine is really important to all of us getting our economy going again. And what I really believe is whether England does it first or we do it first, we're going to share. Communist China, they're not going to share. They don't share. I can't give you an instance where Communist China has tried to be a great partner to the rest of the world. They've decided they just want to dominate the rest of the world.
Senator Scott, thanks very much indeed for